We are writing to you on behalf of all justice-seeking citizens, especially the students and youth of our country, in the wake of the recent Supreme Court ruling on the Babri Masjid case. The Supreme Court has given its verdict in the Babri Masjid case. On the very day of the judgment, we had clarified our position that while we accept the verdict in the larger interests of safeguarding the rule of law, however, we cannot respect it or call it justice. We believe that former Chief Justice of India, Justice J.S. Verma's statement that the Supreme Court is supreme but not infallible is looking evident from this verdict. Legal analysts are still debating over the exact meaning of its various aspects, including the nature of the complete justice rendered by the court and what may or may not be of benefit to constitutional and minority rights in future cases. However, upon a bare reading of the judgment, we cannot help but feel that the Supreme Court seems to have changed its goalpost mid-game in the name of molding relief and balancing claims. The entire Babri Masjid dispute, as it exists in the public imagination and common understanding, rested on the claim that on the birthplace of Ram, a mandir had existed which was destroyed by Muslim rulers to build a masjid. The Muslim parties in the case, and indeed the entire community, has always asserted that if it could be proved the masjid had been built after destroying a mandir, they would give up claim to it. The court clearly found no evidence existed to suggest such a thing, and yet it ruled that the entire land must be given over for the construction of a mandir. The judgment, on the basis of ASI findings which it could not brush aside, concludes that while the masjid was not built on vacant land, there is no evidence that it was built over a mandir, or indeed any structure of Hindu origin for that matter. Similarly, there was no evidence to back the much-hyped propaganda that a mandir had been destroyed to build the masjid. Once this basic claim of the mandir movement had been disproved, logic would seem to dictate that the land belonged to the masjid that was illegally and criminally destroyed, not in any fable or belief, but on live television in front of our eyes. On the face of it, the court emphatically stated that the decision would only be based on evidence, not faith, and ruled in favor of the mandir on the basis of obscure technicalities of tort law and a preponderance of probability that puja might have been offered inside the masjid's courtyard before 1856. But the only basis for saying that the site is the birthplace of Ram is faith and belief of Hindus, which the court calls indisputable. At the end of the day, this faith forms the core of the Supreme Court's judgment, the raison d'etre of the verdict. What happened to Babri Masjid was a crime. The court has called its desecration by placing idols inside it in 1949 and its demolition on 6th of December 1992. An act of dispossessing Muslims by means which should not have been employed in a secular nation committed to the rule of law. And yet, those who employed those means have been rewarded with the exact verdict they desired. The court's idea of rendering complete justice, giving a separate 5-acre land to construct a mosque, is a cruel joke. The dispute was never over land. It was a question of justice. Was the mandir destroyed to build the masjid? If not, what was the hesitation in restoring the land for rebuilding Babri Masjid? The decision has not only legitimized the destruction of Babri Masjid, it has also sanctified a perverted narrative of history that pits Hindus against Muslims in a perpetual conflict over real and imagined grievances of the past. It is useless to pretend that the judgment hasn't shaken our trust in the judiciary. Violence perpetrated by majoritarian mobs in India has gone unpunished by the courts for a very long time. But it has reached brazen heights in the last 5 years. Culprits of lynchings caught on video have been let off by courts. But this was the highest court in the most high-profile case of mob violence in constitutional India's history. We expected better. We still expect better and will continue to struggle for justice at every avenue. But at this time, it is the primary duty of the President of India to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and the law of India per Article 60. We want your kind self and all citizens in the Republic of India, through this open letter, to ponder over a simple question. The Hindutva brigade wanted to remove Babri Masjid and desecrate and destroy it by force, going against every facet of law and the Constitution. And we wanted the Masjid restored and worked through the system. First in the government to protect it, and then in the courts to rebuild it. Whose actions are being chosen to reward? Thank you.